Is it okay, sir?
Yeah, I think you have to operate. It is not.
I'll operate, sir. Whenever you say next slide, then I'll go.
Okay, fine. Okay, good morning, all of you. I'm very happy to take part in this faculty development program for commerce, economics, and management. Friends, I have 40 years of teaching and research experience so far. And I feel like I'm a satisfied person pursuing a career in teaching. Maybe all of you are aware that this is a noble profession and which keeps us all the time very young and enriching. So when we are working on acquiring new knowledge, new developments in the world, we feel like we are getting energized to live young continuously. That is the speciality of this profession. And I congratulate all of you for getting into this profession. Today, our session really focuses on the holistic quality in teaching and learning. We all know how important it is and how we have to make our teaching and learning process highly qualitative. We had inherited skills and methodologies in teaching learning process. We are implementing it. And in our country, which has very rich heritage in teaching learning process through different modes, different training methodologies, and acquired global fame, international recognition at one point of time. But now times got changed very fast. And according to the changes in time, we have to also change our method of teaching learning process. Otherwise, the challenges that we are now going to face in the 21st century are innumerable, different to that of what we had earlier. Education 4.0 stresses the need for transforming the teaching learning process absolutely towards student-centric, personalized. In marketing, we say customization in the teaching learning process now is imperative. We cannot avoid it. We have a traditional wisdom like we, our teachers and the earlier generations, they used to say that we focus on an average student in the classroom, and accordingly we design our teaching learning process. But now that is not considered valid because every student will have a diverse need system, and unless and otherwise we move on, it is very, very difficult to prove yourself as a quality teacher. So let us move on to what kind of qualities a teacher is expected to possess. Next slide, please. The first quality is training skills. Say we believe, and we believed, our system also believes that in institutions, in physical classroom connectivity, our job is to disseminate knowledge, create knowledge. These are the two things that we perceived as the fundamental duties of a teacher. but we have not considered the underlying system which requires from a teacher to the student. What really transforms from a teacher to the student? It is not the knowledge only. Knowledge, whatever that you give, is history. And the student is going to face the future. So the knowledge is only a foundation to think for the future. But what kind of training you are giving to them? The training is on the learning methodologies. If the student is given right kind of learning methodology, the student quickly can understand the core content of the discipline and moves on. So you can achieve the learning outcomes from the student only when the student picks up the right kind of method of learning. This is the difference between advanced learners and slow learners and average learners. Scientifically, it is proved that the brain capacity is more or less similar to all the students. But the variations come because they belong to different cultures, different trainings earlier in the family, in the society, and all that. They may not be able to pick up the right method to capture. That is why the advanced communities, which are very, say, advanced in teaching learning process, they pick up the learning methodologies right from the childhood. So they prove that they are meritorious than others. But others are not, say, the non-meritorious students. Everybody is meritorious, but only thing is X got right method to learn, Y is struggling to find a method to learn. So that is the difference between a good teacher and a average teacher and a poor teacher. Say a good teacher finds the simplified way of learning certain things. And the average and poor teachers, they may not able to find that simplified way of training the students to learn a particular subject. Particularly, you will see in mathematics, in economics, and in problem solving, in case studies and all that. Unless otherwise you train them how to read a case, how to understand it, how to pick up the facts of the case, how to look at the problem, how to diagnose it, and how we have to work out the SWOT, and then the gaps in that, then a strategy. These are all a step-by-step process. We train them so that when they expose to the new problem, they will get into it. So this is a most important skill. A teacher should learn how to train a student. So we have conventional methodologies, we have new methodologies. So now you have to acquire the new methodologies to get yourself up to date, to make the student understand things much better, much faster. It is a faster learning is now one of the important dimensions. You should make the student learn fast. That is the competition. Then enthusiasm to learn. The teacher should have enthusiasm to learn. So, okay, I don't know how many of you joined in the profession by choice. I say record and history says that the majority of the teaching faculty now working in various institutions, universities and colleges, they are not into the profession by choice, it is by compulsion. 20% are there, they are by choice, but 80% are on compulsion. But after joining that, many people loved the profession and then became a great teachers later. That is a different story. So once you have got into this stream, you should develop some kind of learning enthusiasm. So that makes you to be above the level of the other faculty members or other society people who are having this discipline as their career. Then the third important skill, quality that is required is action and dramatization. A teacher should be expressive in their say discourse with the students in classroom. The expressions are actions. So verbal as well as non-verbal communication, they should make it very clearly read by the students. And the way in which they speak to them, wherein the drama is involved. So how to modulate, where to give a pause, where to stress, which point to repeat, and where to variate the sounds, where to stress, all those things we have to learn. Then you can be more effectively communicator. So action and dramatization, character and communication. These two, character is much more important for a teacher because teachers are imitated by students. Teachers are admired by the students. So they observe the behavior of the teachers. That is why we should build up a character which is observable and readable to the students. So unless we are clear, what is my character? What is that I am leaving to the students to read from me? To recognize, emulate, imitate, and become a good citizen in the society. So character and communication. Humility, this is more important now because the access to the information to the student is very high now compared to the earlier situations. And sometimes we may not be up to the level of the student's knowledge because we might not have referred certain sources that the student has referred. Then if they give something more than what you have, you should have the humility to accept it, humility to appreciate it. So you should be, see, the ecosystem between the teacher and student should be totally given up. So we should feel like a co-learners. You are a senior learner and your student is a junior learner, and you have some methodologies, trained system that is with you, and they may not have that much trained system. So that is where you have to share, you have to learn from the students, and that kind of thinking you have to develop it. Evaluation methodologies are very important. So you have to work out on how you can make the evaluation of the students. Whether you go for continuous evaluation, say the teacher should develop a unique style of evaluation of the students. That is their important thing. So it is not like conducting, say, midterm examinations, semester end examinations, whatever that is prescribed by the university or the system. But you should have formal and informal evaluation systems wherein you can understand the student, you can assess the student, where they are and what are the gaps in them and how they can be promoted further. So that kind of evaluation system, you should be innovative yourself. And finally, you should have research skills. Research is considered to be a very, very important input for a teacher. I am sure that my majority of you have already completed your PhD, or you may be in the pursuit of PhD. So PhD is not the totality of research. It is not a degree that makes you a researcher. You should have a research aptitude. PhD facilitates you to learn certain skills which are useful for teaching. So what kind of skills that research gives to you, I'll show you in the next slide. Please go to the next slide. Research helps you to acquire learning skills. A researcher is a micro level key learner of things. Research requires a review of literature. So whatever happened, whatever works that are taken place on the topic that you have chosen to do research, you have to learn every detail of it. And you should understand everything. So that much volume of literature, you have to synthesize and understand, and then you can formulate a problem. So how to make it? How to present a review of a big work? Research tells you. Research, the most important skill that every PhD student acquires is analytical skills. How you have to analyze an issue, a problem, in a way that leads to a solution. That skill is a very important skill that you can get from research. Improvement in writing and presentation skills. Research requires it. Project design skills. Skills of drawing inferences, concluding a problem with a solution. Investigation skills. Differentiating relevant facts with irrelevant facts. And the most importantly, research helps us to diagnose the problem. So diagnostic skills also we can get from research. So when you are doing research, whether these kind of outcomes I achieved or not, you have to check. So whatever skills that I have listed here, these are the expected outcomes of a PhD work. So all the PhD holders have a question mark on yourself whether you have all these skills or not. Right? Next slide, please. So let us see what the holistic perspective of teaching learning is. Holistic perspective of a quality teacher is shaping self to become student-centric. Very difficult to become student-centric. It is not possible just like that. Student-centric means you must be able to understand the student, the diverse needs of the student, and you should be capable of meeting the diverse needs of the students. That is the specialty. So you should shape yourself to become student-centric. You should be able to transform yourself as a source of knowledge. As I told you, the resources of knowledge are increasing day by day, and the 21st century, the fastest growing sector in the 21st century is knowledge sector. Every day in and day out, some new knowledge is generating in all disciplines. Ours is not an exception. Ours is also very fast changing. So as a teacher, you should prove that you are a step ahead of the student. If you want to display yourself, position yourself as a source of knowledge, you should be a continuous reader, continuously update your knowledge, then only you can become like that. It is the biggest challenge for a teacher. to become. Otherwise, you will not be considered as a holistic quality teacher. You must be a person on whom the student can trust upon. Trust between teacher and student should be there. When you are consistently on the righteous perspective, then only the students will trust you. If you are in confusion, if you confuse the students, if you commit mistakes, and if you are not accepting them and not correcting yourself, the trust will be broken. You should become a behavioral model. So you should visualize yourself, how I am displaying myself as a behavioral model. You must become a guide and an inspiring personality. So when you achieve all the 5, you are at the holistic perspective of quality teacher. Next, please. As a teacher, we are accountable for students, employer. Often there is a clash between employer expectations and student expectations. Parents, society, employers of students. Second is your employer. 5th is employers of the students. And then finally, you are accountable for your family. Say your respect as a teacher carries to your family. If you are respected by your students, if you are recognized by your institution, the family takes pride of it. Your children takes pride of it. Your wife will take pride of it. Your parents will take pride of it. So all are your stakeholders. Your work, your behavior, your performance, your achievements, all are connected to these 6 groups. So you are accountable for them. Remember that all the time. Next, please. So let us look at how we can enhance quality in teaching. First requirement is choosing the right method of teaching. What is the right method of teaching? How we can go about it? We know conventionally, chalk and talk. We used to have huge blackboards. Later, some institutions started using green boards, then white boards. Chalk pieces are replaced by marker pens. Such things happen. But believe me, even today, worldwide, it is proved that chalk and talk is the most effective method of teaching learning process. Most effective. Even highly advanced institutions, despite the technology that we have, chalk and talk is used very effectively. So we have to preserve that. We have to masterize it. So you need not write on board. You can use the online space to write it. The process of writing, process of drawing makes the student learn more effectively compared to display of the outcome. So if a slide like this is displayed, it is an outcome given. But if you start writing it, then the student will follow the process of writing and try to absorb everything. So that is the kind of difference that we can make it. You can pick up a drawing teacher when he is drawing a figure. If a student follows it, he will be learning how to draw it. If a drawn picture is shown, then they cannot make that much impact in learning process. So chalk and talk is definitely a wonderful method one can practice. Second is participative learning. We are propagating this for quite some time to make learning participative. And all of us, we claim that we are practicing participative learning. We claim. But really, are we really confident that we are promoting participative learning? We know that at the end of the session, what we do? We ask the students to raise some questions. We leave some space to the students to raise the questions. And our experience very clearly says that except the 5 or 6 continuously all the time, the rest will never raise the questions. Because at the end of the session, they don't have any interest in raising the questions. They get habituated. It is not necessary to ask questions. So question answer is not the only way of making students participative. So we have to evolve different other kinds of methodologies to make students participative in the process. Participative doesn't mean that you are initiating discussion and making the student discuss all the time. Discussion is one way of participative learning, but that is not the only way we can go for it. So often, unless you prepare the students well for discussion, they won't get into the discussion. And even in the group discussion, then 1 or 2 takes the lead and other becomes silent participants. So what is participation here is not the vocal and activity of the student that make it. The student should follow the lecture right from the beginning to the end. That is the participation. Mental participation. How to engage student during the session. After the session, that is a different story. How to engage him during the session. Say if your session is 60 minutes or 90 minutes, how to keep the attention of a student on the subject continuously for the time, and how to make him learn certain things which we wanted to make them. Many of us deliver lectures for 90 minutes session, and at the end of the session, if you ask the participant to speak about what you have learned, many a time I saw that whatever you taught in the last 5 minutes, they try to pick up them. And those who have taken some notes, they will try to reread the notes. Otherwise, it is not virtually possible to remember the words, the issues that you have delivered for 90 minutes. It is quite impossible. So what is suggested is, you have to identify at least 5 statements per 1 hour lecture for a course in a semester. How many sessions we are having? 1 hour sessions if you take it. A semester, you will be having not less than 60 sessions. 60 hours of teaching of a course paper. So 60 into 5. How many statements? 300 statements. In 1 hour, if you can make a student remember and understand 5 statements, that student becomes a gem in the subject. Unfortunately, we are not making those 5. And we are not insisting them or facilitating them to learn those 5. And finally, when Viva OC exam is conducted for a course paper, the students are struggling to give answers. Our effort, 60 hours of effort, is not yielding result because we are not making them participative in the process. So one method is identifying for every session 5 statements which you wanted to make them understand, learn, memorize, record, and continue to have it as part of the learning process. And you may make them to have some 10-minute break questions like what you are doing in online learning, or in the physical class, face-to-face class also. You have to work more to make the student participate. Like you can give a 10 blank statements with some blanks, so that during the listening, the student has to fill the blanks. By the end of the class, they should come out with the 5 statements or 10 statements, whatever you gave, in the same line. So they will be looking for the answer for the statements. And in the process, they will learn those statements number of times. And you should make sure that in your teaching, the blanks are really communicated in a perfect manner. So by the end of it, the student will be having that. That is one thing. Conducting seminars, group discussions is definitely one way you can make the students participate well. And I will share another one. I say there is a method called Ustad approach. Say if you give assignments to the students and ask them to collect the opinions of Ustad is an expert. Let them interact with experts, either online or physically. Collect information on that. Develop a solution and answer to that assignment, and let them present. It's not a one-man assignment. You can divide the class into 10 groups and give 10 specific assignments and let them work on the 10 assignments. So they will not forget it. And the experience of learning and diverse opinions and making them in one line, putting them in a comprehensive mode, communicating, public speaking, organizing the presentation, everything becomes a learning. That is called Ustad approach. So that also you can make it, and you can evolve many other things. So participative learning is another way that you have to make it. Experimentation, science students, engineering students, they do. But even for the social sciences also, you can make them to experiment themselves, try themselves. So in commerce, like commerce, so labs are coming out, management labs are coming up. So virtual system simulations are coming up. So wherein they'll try themselves and then learn certain things. Experiential learning, we should put them into the live projects, experience them, let them commit some mistakes, learn from the mistakes, let them go to the society, understand the discipline, how it is connected to the society, how it is impacting the society, and from that, let them learn, let them experience. So experiential learning requires movement out of the classroom, mostly, and let them have hands-on experience so that they can have better learning process. So you have to evolve a right method of teaching. Another method which is very popular right from the centuries is considered the most effective way of teaching is storytelling approach. Say if you are competent to convert a discipline, it's possible in every discipline, including engineering, medicine. You can translate it into a story. At the lower level of learning, at a higher level of learning, storytelling is most effective way of reaching the students. So you have to learn how to build a story, how to construct a story. So you have to observe the writer's method of telling a story. The media people, how they tell a story to the students, to the readers, to the audience, to the target groups. So if you look at it, so you will find a method in doing that. Finally, there will be a narrative to every story. That narrative is the learning that we are expecting them to go for it. So for that, we are building a story. We are developing a drama. We are creating characters. We are making some interactions among the characters, and they speak on, they conversate, and finally the narrative comes to us. So wherever there is a possibility, pick up an example in the form of a story and reach the student very effectively. So that is important. Say, for example, you are teaching entrepreneurship. You can take a story of a successful entrepreneur and say the reality and the story. Story will have some drama. So you have to add such flavors so that imprint of that will be very strong in the mind of the student. So that kind of approach is important. Research in relevant discipline is another requirement. You have to plan the presentation. This is another important dimension. You have to plan how to begin, how to end, what should be the process, the paraphrasing of the presentations, where visuals are required, where voice modulation should be different, where we have to raise questions, and how to make the students answer those questions, and how to lead question to answer. These are all the plan that you have to perfectly execute it. You have to plan it and execute it. And selecting appropriate aid, that is ICT, Information and Communication Technology. Appropriate aid. I'll please go for the next slide, please. You have many applications of ICT in teaching learning process. Particularly, we have experienced the importance of ICT during the COVID pandemic. PowerPoint presentation, all of you are almost comfortable with it. Now you have interactive boards, online interaction in the classroom. So you can take the students to real-time situations on the class itself. You can show a stock market operations on the screen in the classroom and make the student follow it as a live project. So that kind of facility now has come to us. We must make it. Then you can connect the students beyond the classroom. And through ICT application, now you have to develop e-content. You can develop e-content with the use of technology, and you can source e-content with the use of technology. That is possible for you. Then it facilitates peer group learning, connectivity to learning resources. You can display videos, virtual labs, you can make it. Games and case studies are now made easy for you. You can record live lectures and send it to the students for future reference whenever you want. You can collect instantaneous feedback from about your lecture. That is also possible. So you have multiple applications of technology. And in fact, the transformation of the institutions as technology-based institutions of teaching and learning process is the challenge now the Indian higher educational institutions are facing. During the COVID time also, we have faced a lot of problems of digital divide that we had. But things are now smoothening. And in another 4 or 5 years, we can see that the network access and bandwidth access is possible throughout the country for every young person, every student. So unless otherwise we transform ourselves, learning digital skills and using them in the classroom, in the teaching learning process effectively. So blending technology with the conventional methodology, that makes the teaching learning process more effective, and the large quantity of knowledge that is generated, you can make them as capsules and give it to the students to understand and learn, because they have to face critical challenges in the future. So if they don't have enough knowledge of various things that are happening around the world in multiple disciplines, not one discipline, in multiple disciplines, it is very, very difficult for them to face the challenges of the world. We all know NEP 2020, it is making the entire system to change. A paradigm shift is advocated, and that is the need of the hour for our education system to move forward, the direction in which the NEP 2020 gave us. So that is possible only when teachers accept it, when teachers work on it, and when teachers promote it. Otherwise, it's not possible. So that is possible when you master the ICT applications in teaching learning process. Next, please. We'll go back to the earlier slide. So self-assessment and student feedback. Every teacher should have his own methodology of assessing himself or herself. There are two feedbacks. One is yours, another is students. Student feedback is to reconfirm your feedback, self-assessment feedback. Your psychological system, your senses, they'll tell you whether you have done it well or not. whether you are in a comfort zone or not when you are interacting with students on a particular theme or a particular subject. If you have the clarity of what you are talking about, what you want to convey to the other party, and the kind of method that you are using to reach them, and if you could able to read the eyes and faces of the people, the attention of the people, all through, it is very easy for us whether we are successful or not. And if we are not successful, also you will be knowing where you are not successful, where you are comfortable, where you are not comfortable. And you have ample opportunities to learn, relearn, understand the gaps and filling up the things. You can make it out. So what I want to suggest is you should assess yourself at the end of every session and try to collect feedback of the student. It's not IQAC collecting feedback. You have to collect feedback from the students at the end of every session. Then that helps you to become better and better every day. Student engagement is another challenge of a teacher. If you know how to engage a student in your course that you are talking about, you are teaching, so you have to think where you want the student be engaged effectively. Find out those areas and try to make the students involved into it and let them take part into it. So you can make them think about it, think differently, think creatively on that discipline. That is what I mean student engagement is. You have to engage them. You have to engage their brains, their thought process on the discipline. Next, please. All the time, as teachers, we have to focus on achieving learning outcomes. University Grants Commission very clearly specified that there should be clearly defined graduate outcomes, program outcomes, and course learning outcomes. The three outcomes should be clearly defined, and your curriculum design and development, teaching learning process, evaluation methodologies, everything relating to the process right from the entry to exit of the student, they should be outcome based. So the decision of outcomes, a teacher should understand what the outcomes are, how I can ensure that every student of mine reaches those outcomes, achieves it, and whether what kind of method I use to know that they have achieved or not, or help them to know whether they have achieved or not. So in fact, our job is to help them to know what are the outcomes, whether they have achieved or not. That is the purpose. So let us see what are the graduate attributes. Next slide, please. Disciplinary outcomes. So when you admit a student for 2 years or 3 years or a degree course or a PG course, they should learn by the time they become graduate, they should learn the discipline. Discipline related outcomes, they should learn it. They should have knowledge on the subject, relevant knowledge, sufficient knowledge. They should have communication skills. They should develop critical thinking. problem solving skills, analytical reasoning, research related skills, cooperation and teamwork, scientific reasoning, reflective thinking, information and digital literacy, self-directed learning, multicultural competence, moral and ethical awareness, leadership readiness, lifelong learning skills. So whether these are really given to the students, or really we made the students to have them, to what extent? Are we looking at all these things in our teaching plan? When we are developing a teaching plan for a course, are we integrated all these attributes a graduate is required to display? Then comes the program attributes. Program is specific to a particular area of learning. Anthropology is an anthropology program. History is a history program. Commerce is a commerce program. Economics is an economics program. So, if you want a person to be a graduate of economics, what are the outcomes we wanted to see from the student? So that is, they are called program outcomes. So every program will design and develop outcomes. We have to ensure that those outcomes are communicated, and we have to evolve the right kind of methods so that the students will learn those things and acquire those knowledge or skill, whatever it is, at the end of the semester or end of the program. So that's kind of thing that we have to make it. Next slide, please. So course outcomes have been forgotten. Course outcomes is relating to a particular course paper. So principles of management is one paper. When you are teaching principles of management, what are the things you wanted the student to learn? You have to list out. And you have to check whether those things are really achieved or not. So that is called course outcomes. So quality enhancement in classroom teaching, you should prepare a teaching plan. You should prepare sources of learning and the scope and expectations of your presentation. You should be very clearly communicating them. The second important aspect is punctuality and time management. So a teacher is expected to be punctual all the time. And how you manage the time right from the beginning to the end, how you take the content flow sequentially, meaningfully, logically, and you come to an end of that part. That is the time management of a class. Then, as I told you, you have to make a presentation plan, and you should see that the plan is executed well. You should look for feedback from direct as well as indirect sources. Direct sources, the students themselves. And you should have the indirect sources also. The students, if they like you, if they like your presentations, the word of mouth moves, and you can take the feedback from your peers, take the feedback from other students. So like that, you should see not only from one source, multiple sources, the feedback. Then you have to take care of both the advanced learners as well as slow learners. I told you the diverse needs of the students need to be addressed. Some students have the capacity to learn very fast because they know the method of learning, either from their family or from their neighbors or from the right kind of teachers in the beginning. So they become advanced. So you cannot pull them back just because you have a slow learners also entered into the system. So the teaching learning process, the quality now speaks that you cannot ignore the fast learners by looking at the slow learners, or you cannot ignore slow learners and focusing on advanced learners. So you have to find out a different methodology to reach either of them. So that is an important aspect. So then encourage student to ask questions. Art of questioning is an important quality. Both the teacher and the student should have it. So where to question, how to construct a question, and when to ask, that also need to be trained. You should give right kind of training to the student in developing questions and putting those questions to the student, to the teacher, or to the fellow students, or in the groups like that. So encourage the students to ask questions. Don't discourage them. That is, some teachers, they get irritated when students raise questions if they don't know the answer to that. So that kind of problem also is there, but we should not be one among them. Interact and support beyond the classroom. Now this is the order of the day. So you are expected as a teacher accessible to the students most of the time, formally as well as informally. Informally doesn't mean that you are crossing your limits in say interacting with the students. You have to be within the zone. That is why I told you that you should have a character, you should develop a behavioral model. So within the limits that you have to interact and available to the students beyond the classroom. Have an open mind and learn from experiences of self and others. This teacher should be a continuous learner, everybody says. But experience should not make you an egoistic personality. You should always try to open yourself to learn wherever there is good thing that is happening. Listening to the people who got an image as best communicators. Understanding the method they are adopting in presentation, in articulating a particular thing, in constructing a speech, a presentation. That is a learning source for every teacher. So we should get exposed to many of the teachings by people across the world. Excuse me. By looking at the videos available now, e-content available now, critically keep the content aside, but see how they are delivering a presentation. So that is an important source of learning for us. So try to attend as many lectures as possible and give high priority to the teaching system, how they could able to attract the attention, hold the attention throughout, and make us feel comfortable and make us feel that the time passed without knowing. That means we got involved into the process of listening to a particular lecture. That kind of models you pick up, get exposed continuously, and try to have a learning points out of it. Learnings can be from the best faculty, learnings from the also from the very poor faculty. Sometimes you are exposed to a boring lecture, and that also is a learning for you, where the particular person failed to attract the attention of the people and hold the attention of the people and failed to motivate the group and generate interest in the group, communicate the things that they wanted. That kind of things you have to take as an input, and you should see that your teaching personality is not having such gaps, such minus points, such limitations. So that is the requirement. Continuously search for models in teaching and emulate. Next, please. Say if you want to become a competent teacher, first thing you should have continuous update of knowledge and the discipline that you have chosen. There is no substitute for it. There is no alternative. You have to be a continuous learner. You should always keep yourself ahead of the students. For that, you have to work on. It is not that the lecture, the teaching notes that is prepared in the beginning of the career and continuously using to the end of your career. That is not a good sign of any teacher. So we have seen some teachers of that kind, but that is a different story, because we wanted to be a good and high quality teachers. So every teaching, every time you deliver a lecture, you should feel that it is a new one, a fresh one, and what new things I have added to it. So that kind of consciousness is very important for a teacher. That is why you should continuously update your knowledge. You should be tech savvy. As I told you, that unless you are exposed to digital literature, digital skills, you cannot survive with the current generation. So whatever age you are, you have to get acquainted with the technological skills. Experimenting attitude. Experimenting attitude means that you have to prepare yourself to come out of your comfort zones, come out of your status quo positions. So this is a mental construct that is required for every teacher. You should think that how I can move forward. Networking with the people in the industry, people in the society, people in the other disciplines, people in the discipline, within the country, outside the country. That network will help you to know many things, knowledge as well as other things, open-mindedness, and finally, learn to unlearn and relearn. This is an important quality that is required. You have to unlearn and also relearn the things. So then you can become a good teacher. So finally, it is like a summary. Integrate the teaching and learning process. You cannot separate it. You don't separate it. The learning can be from books, observation, from the society, interactions, so many things that happens for us. Integrate all those experiences that you have with teaching. Understand the methodology of learning of the students, how the students are learning, understand them, and try to find a way through which you can make the students learn. Teach them accordingly to get connected and then drive them to the right method of learning if necessary. Develop stress-free teaching and learning methods. Plan the process meticulously and execute it effectively. Learn from mistakes and introduce changes. Involve students and involve yourself. Develop performance indicators for yourself. Finally, collect feedback and review your performance periodically. So this is what is required for us to improve our quality standards in teaching learning process. So thank you very much for the patient listening all the time. And if you have questions, I think the admin has to tell me.
There is no question in the Q&A box, sir, as of now.
Okay. Then if anybody wants to speak on this, how much time left for us?
Sir, one question in the chat box. Sir, don't you feel that under CBSE system, time is really very, very short for a teacher for properly going for a holistic method of teaching? Most of the time, teachers just struggle to cover the syllabus in this semester.
Very, very, very right question that you have raised. See, we have to, who is making the syllabus? We are making the syllabus. We are designing the curriculum. So while designing the curriculum, we have to really calculate how much time it is required. What is the content really we wanted to deliver? So now it is a part of your teaching plan. See, if you are connected to only conventional method of teaching, like every thing that is there in the syllabi, I have to give a lecture to the student in the classroom. That was our perception. But the new methodology is saying that you don't do that. You make the student get ready with the sources of information and knowledge that it's available. And that is the concept of flipped classrooms have come up. So you have to prioritize which topic I have to deal with, where my interference is required, where my interference is not required. So you should make the students learn themselves more than making them learn only in the physical classroom. So that is how you have to retranslate the system of teaching learning in your course, and then you can make yourself comfortable. Otherwise, if you follow the traditional pattern that right from first line in the curriculum syllabus to the end, if you go on teaching every day, whatever you said is 100% right. You will not find time at all to become holistic. Yes.
And
but that is not the right to do. Yeah, please.
Why government impose on publishing research paper in international journal? My question, our country journal are underrated. It is underrated. Or our regional languages are not equal to English language. And why UGC or various state governments not promote to do research in regional languages?
First thing, international journal doesn't mean it is published by international other countries. That is the standard of the journal which has the circulation worldwide. That is international journal. So as far as the standards and quality standards of publications are concerned, yes, Now we have multiple sources of publications. Many are paid, and we are producing a large quantity of papers published, but the real recognition as the quality publications is less than 20%. So that is why the UGC insisting in that. So the intention is to see that quality research outcomes is generated from the faculty. That is the intention. There is, we should not misinterpret that. It is not underrating the publications of Indian origin. There are good publications in the Indian origin that they are respected.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving so much of advices and for giving the answers and Q&A box, sir. And on behalf of the participants and on behalf of the charity, so.